Many functional consultants think debugging is only for ABAP developers, but in real projects, waiting for ABAP can delay your analysis for days. In this video, I'll show you how functional consultants can debug a step-by-step SAP even if you don't know how to code. We'll activate the debugger, understand the screen, follow a real SAP TM scenario, and learn how to report this issue to the developers like a pro. Let's start with a simple concept. When a user executes a transaction, SAP runs thousands of lines of code in the background and returns a result. Debugging means stopping that execution and following the logic step by step. As a functional consultant, your goal is not to write code. Your goal is to understand where the process fails, which data is run, and which business rule is triggered. Now let's activate the debugger. In the SAP command field, simply type /h and press enter. The command activates debugging in the next action. You can see down here the debugging is switched on. After that, executes a transaction, for example VA01. When the process starts, the ABAP debugger will open automatically. At first, the debugger screen looks scary, but you only need a few buttons. The most important ones are step into, step over, and resume execution. You can also execute this action using the keyboard shortcuts. F5 goes inside a method or function. Use this when you want to see exactly what happens inside a class or ABAP method. F6 step over. Skips the internal logic and move to the next line of code. As a functional consultant, you should mainly use step over because you want to follow the business logic without going too deep into technical details. And F8 is used to continue the program execution until the next breakpoint or until the program finishes. This is useful when you already validate something and don't need to analyze line by line anymore. In the center of the screen, you can see the ABAP source code. This is where you follow the execution line by line and understand which logic is being executed. On the left side, you can see the variables and their values. This is where you validate the real business data processed. On the top left, you can also check the code stack to see which classes and methods are executed. This is how you identify the technical flow of the transaction and understand how the process is triggered. A breakpoint is a pause point in the program where SAP stops execution so you can see what is happening inside the system before it continues. For example, here in the line 42, I set a breakpoint. If I press F8, the program continues executing until that point. In similar way, you can add a watch point. A watch point is a type of breakpoint where you define a specific variable and desired value. The program will stop automatically when that condition is met for the first time. Also, we have an external breakpoint, which is required when the execution runs in a different session, such as SAP TM planning triggered by the Fiori app. Since the logic runs asynchronously, only an external breakpoint will stop the program and allow you to analyze the planning data and logic. You can also set a breakpoint exactly when an error occurs, so you can analyze the data and understand why the SAP is behaving that way. To do that, you just need to identify the error message number and use the breakpoint add option with that information. This way, when the error occurs, the program will stop exactly at that point. For example, I'm facing this error, and as a functional consultant, I want to know the exact point where this message is being validated. So first, I will grab this message number, and then I will activate the debugger and try again the transaction. Once the debugger is open, we go to the breakpoints menu, select the breakpoint add option, and choose the breakpoint add message. Here we enter the message ID and the message number of the error. Then we continue the execution and the program will stop when the error is found. Now that you have identified the error point and the debugger, what details can you provide to developers from a functional perspective? Well, at the top of the debugger screen, you can see the program name, include, and the exact line number where the execution stopped. When the cursor is in that line, this information clearly shows where the logic is being processed. This is usually more than enough to locate the code and continue the investigation. Here is a list of items that can be part of an accurate functional report. Program include line, message or validation triggered, business document and key data, relevant variable values, expected versus actual results, debugger screenshots. If we want to debug the planning process of a document or analyze a change in a file order in SAP TM, the first thing we need to identify is where to place the breakpoint. This approach is valid for other functional areas as well, but in SAP TM is especially important because planning is executed from priori, meaning it runs in external session. I start by going to Transaction BOPF. Here, I navigate through the Business Object Library and locate the object CCMTMS-TOR, which is the technical representation of the transportation documents such as freight orders. Within the TOR business object, go to Node Elements and select the root node. The root node represents the main header of the freight orders, where most planning relevant data is evaluated, such as dates, location, and status. Then, under validation, I can see all validations that are executed during processing. As a TM functional consultant, I can choose which validation is relevant for my analysis. In this case, I select root consistency check. Once the validation is selected, I go to the class interface field. This shows me the ABAP class where the validation is implemented. I double click on it to open the technical object. In SAP TM business object, there is usually a method called execute. Even without ABAP knowledge, we can logically infer that this method is a good starting point because it is where the validation logic is executed. So I place an external breakpoint in the executed method. If planning fails or behaves unexpectedly, the root consistency is usually the first place where SAP validates whether the document is eligible for planning. Now, for testing purposes, let's go to the freight orders work list and select one of them. We open it in edit mode and trigger the document check. As expected, the external breakpoint is reached, and now we can debug and analyze the planning logic. In the top left, we can see the ABAP call and where the execution is currently stopped. We can double-click any variable, whether it is a structure or a single field, to check these values. We can move step by step to follow the code logic. Most importantly, we should look to familiar business data such as document type or any known value from the freight order. To finish the debugger session, we simply press F8 to continue the execution. To wrap this up, I want you to remember something important as a functional consultant. Debugging is not about writing ABAP code. It is about stopping the process at the right decision point. and looking at the real business data while the system is running. With the debugger, you can clearly identify documents and key values even without strong technical skills. This helps you to understand why SAP behaves the way it does, and most importantly, it allows you to communicate clearly and confidently with ABAP team. In the end, debugging becomes a bridge between functional knowledge and the technical analysis behind the system. I want to thank you for watching this tutorial, and I hope this gave you a practical insight you can apply in your consultant's career. If you want more real-life SAP TM scenarios like this, make sure to subscribe this channel. See you in the next one.